If you're tight and inflexible, then today I want you to learn the best stretching routine for beginners. The best part is it only takes 10 minutes. So let's dive into the first stretch. One of the most common areas of tightness on people is their hips, specifically either your hamstrings or your hip flexors on the front side of your hip. And this stretch addresses both of them really fast. So what you're gonna do is start in a kneeling position on the ground, putting a pillow on the ground and making sure that your knee is nice and comfortable. We don't want your kneecap grinding in the ground. From there, you're gonna turn your hips straight forward, and if you need to, keep a chair next to you. That can be there for balance and support if you need to. What you're gonna do is this. First, we're gonna bring our pelvis towards our front heel and open up the hip flexors. Now here it's important that we don't overarch our back like this, because we really wanna feel this in the hip flexors. So instead, squeeze the glutes and tilt the pelvis like this, and then allow your body to move forward so you feel it more in the hip flexor. You can hold it here for a second or two, usually exhaling as we come forward, and then you can push into that front heel, straighten that leg if you can. If you need to readjust, you can always readjust as well. And then bring your belly button towards your front thigh and lift your toes towards your nose until you feel a stretch on the back side of that hamstring. You're gonna go back and forth, stretching the hip flexor, holding for a few seconds, and then stretching the hamstrings and holding for a few seconds, going back and forth just like this for about 90 seconds on the right side, and then you'll switch and you'll go 90 seconds on the left side, doing the same thing. Squeezing your glutes, coming forward, stretching the hip flexor, extending back, lifting the toes to the nose, and bringing your belly button towards your thigh, stretching the back side of the hamstring, just like this. Now, once you've done 90 seconds on both sides, let's move on to the next stretch. If your groin is tight or if your lower back is tight, then this is the best groin and lower back stretch. So you're gonna start in a straddle position like this on the ground. And don't worry if you can't do this, I'll show you an easier variation in just a sec. From there, you're gonna slowly open the hips as much as you can while being able to maintain a nice upright posture. And then we're gonna proceed to do side bends like this. First, we're gonna reach our rib cage toward the sky, reach our hand up, and see if we can come over to the side as much as possible while still feeling comfortable. Don't go too far, especially if this is your first time doing straddle side bends. And you're gonna lean from side to side just like this. And over time, we're gonna keep reaching and trying to create more flexibility and mobility in the spine, doing this for around 90 seconds each time we do it, reaching for the opposite toe. So the goal is eventually, can we grab the toe with our opposite hand just like this? Now, if this seems way too hard for you, don't worry. Even if you're just doing this, you're still doing straddle side bends, and you'll be stretching your lower back and your groin. But if you can't sit on the ground even like this, a great way to make this a little bit easier is to come up to a chair and do your straddle in the chair like this. So straightening the legs, opening the hips, and then doing your side bends from the chair. So by elevating the surface, we make this movement a little bit easier. It doesn't have to be a chair, it can be a cushion on the ground, and the closer we are to the ground, the more challenging this will be. So find the right height for you, and then do this for 90 seconds to loosen up the groin and loosen up your lower back. If you have tension in your hips, then this one move makes your hips feel so good. And it's really important to do this move because most people neglect it. You see, tight hips often doesn't mean can you open your hips or close your hips, have more flexibility in your hamstrings or your hip flexors. It often means that you have poor internal and external rotation of the hips, the ability for the hip to twist inside of its socket. This stretch tackles both directions at the same time. It's called a hip 90-90. If you're a complete beginner, you can start by doing this in a chair just like this. Come to the edge of the chair, put your hands down on the chair, take a nice wide stance with your toes turning slightly outward. From there, drop this knee as far out to the outside as you can till you feel a little bit of stretch inside your groin, and then drop this knee all the way down until you feel a stretch on the outside of your hip. Hold for just a second, and then rotate through the middle and over to the opposite side, trying to open the hip on one side as much as possible and trying to internally rotate the hip as much as possible on the opposite side. You're gonna go back and forth like this for 90 seconds, holding the end position for a second or so, and starting to get more mobility in your hip internal and external rotation. Now, if this is too easy, you can make your way to the ground or a surface that's less high than the chair, and you could do your hip 90-90s on the ground just like this. The knee opens up, comes down to the ground, this knee closes down to the ground like this. If we want to stretch our glutes more, we bow towards this leg. If we want to stretch our internal rotators more, we turn towards this leg, okay? They come over to the opposite side, like this. Again, if you want to stretch the glutes, lean forward this way. If you want to stretch the hip internal rotators, lean towards this knee right here. Hold for a second, and just come back and forth for 90 seconds to loosen up the hip internal and external rotation. Eventually, we want to get flexible enough where we don't need the support of our hands anymore, and we can do hip internal and external rotation just while sitting on the ground. If you have bad posture like this, then this stretch can transform your posture. It's one of my favorites, and it's even a move that strengthens a lot of muscles while it's stretching a lot of muscles at the same time. So here's how you're gonna do it. You're gonna bring your legs out forward like this, take your hands behind you, turn your fingertips backwards, and then the first step is to pull the shoulder blades back and drop the shoulders away from the ears. So we're not gonna be bringing the shoulders forward or shrugging up like this throughout this movement. We really wanna maintain shoulders back, shoulders down away from the ears, chest lifted high. Now from there, you're gonna dig your heels into the ground, imagining you're curling your heel towards your butt like this to bring you into a tabletop position or as high of a position as you can go comfortably. Then you'll hold for a few seconds and come back down. So it looks like this. Dig the heels in, lift the hips up, come all the way up to the tabletop position if you can. If not, if it's just to here, that's totally fine. What we're trying to feel is a stretch through the chest and through the shoulders. So if we maintain pulling the shoulder blades back, dropping the shoulders away from the ears and lifting hips towards the sky, you should feel that. Every time we lift up, we're gonna try to go a little bit higher. Hold for a second or two if you can. Squeeze those glute muscles to drive those hips upward like this. Come back down, rest for a second, reset the shoulders, and repeat, just like this. Now, for a lot of people, this can be too challenging. If that's the case for you, then one of the easiest ways to make this a little bit easier is to scale it down by starting in a chair instead of on the ground. So for this one, what you'll do is you'll bring your feet out forward, you'll scoot to the edge of the chair, bring your hands to the outside of the chair like this, open the chest, pull the shoulder blades back, dig the heels on the ground, and lift your hips toward the sky, just like this. You should get the same strengthening effect on the muscles between your shoulder blades and stretching effect on the muscles on the front sides of your shoulders and your chest, and you'll even open your hips as you lift the hips towards the sky. Make sure you do this move for 90 seconds, and your shoulders and your back and your posture will levy for it. If you're tight anywhere in your body, your calves, your hamstrings, your hip flexors, your back, your shoulders, your neck, then this could be the best stretch in the world. It's called the up-down dog, and it's really simple. All you have to do is start in a downward dog position like this, bringing the feet back and the hands forward. Don't worry about dropping your heels down and stretching your calves first. Instead, worry about getting your belly button towards your thighs and your tailbone pointed up towards the ceiling. This way you have a nice, straight, neutral spine. Then from there, try to bring your chest between your arms more, bringing your belly button and your chest more towards your thighs. Finally, relax your heels down and let those calves and those hamstrings stretch like crazy. From there, you're gonna come forward into a plank position, squeeze the glutes right as we hit that plank position, open the chest, rotate the elbow pits forward, and look up towards the sky. You can relax your knees down if you want to, or you can keep this active by locking the legs and floating above the ground. Hold this for a few seconds, and then push the butt up and back into the downward dog position, just like this. So going back and forth between these two positions for 90 seconds can do wonders for your spine, your hips, your hamstrings, your lower back, your shoulders, and so many areas of your body. But if that's too hard for you, then I got a simpler variation for you to try next. This one, you can use a surface like a countertop or a nice sturdy chair. Just make sure it's nice and sturdy. From there, what you're gonna do is come back into a downward dog position, just like this. So all you're gonna do is drop your chest between your arms. And then as you come back up, squeeze your glutes, open your chest, and look up at the sky. Doesn't have to be a huge back bend, just a tiny one like this. Then push the butt back, drop the chest between the arms, and just like before, go back and forth like this for 90 seconds. What a fantastic full body stretch. There you have it, 5 stretches that any beginner should be able to do to loosen up their body and make their body feel amazing. And if you like these stretches, remember, click the link below and sign up for one of our free stretching routines that's going to help you stretch your entire body and make your body feel amazing. Oh, and if you want more stretches, well, you can always watch this video right here.